Alright, as promised, we're out here on Porch Couch doing another video this morning. This is a 5-inch pair, so you can see it's not that big, of vice grips. Now, why would I need this as a carpenter? Why would I keep this in my tool belt as a carpenter? There's multiple reasons to have a pair this size in your tool belt. Now, I do a lot of the woodworking that I do is a lot of pocket screws. And what I like about these is, see how the tip of the jaws, it has that knurling, I guess you'd call it, that runs perpendicular to the teeth here. What this is really good for is you open it up a little bit so you can get it on the head of, say, a stripped screw. And it's not just for pocket screws, but if like if you're doing a deck and a screw strips out and you can't get it out, get it wide enough to get on the head of the screw, and you can twist it out. You can twist out stripped out screws with this. Obviously, when I do mechanic work on the cars and the small engines and stuff, I have bigger ones than this. But even when I'm doing stuff on that, sometimes I'll tell my son, Hayden, go to my tool belt and grab that little pair of vice grips, because they're fantastic for that. Now, another thing I really like about these is they get fairly wide. They get wide enough that you can do, I wouldn't do it frequently, but you can get it wide enough to change the blade on a skill saw. I have a special wrench for that it lives in the saw, but sometimes that gets lost or sometimes it's misplaced. And you just really got to get the blade changed quick because you want to get the hell out of there, and this works for that. I wouldn't do it a lot because it would chew it out. Now, what else do I use these for? Just any adjustments you'd need to make on like your air hoses and stuff like that. Any kind of bolts that you have. I've even used a pair of these to put in. We were doing, so a little bit of a story, a little bit of a backstory. We were over in Burrillville on, I think it's George Washington Lake. I think it was George Washington. It was somewhere in Burrillville, on a lake in Burrillville. And these people had it was a cement foundation basement that they had put some kind of roof on, some kind of flat roof on it, like 20 years ago. And they were using it as a summer house. And we had built 2 sheds for them, one that they were using as an outhouse, and one that they were using to store all of their summer kitchen stuff in. So like a grill, the propane tank with the big burner on top so that you can do like clam boils and lobster bakes and stuff like that. We had built those 2 sheds for them and delivered them, and they said, hey, can you put a roof on this for us? And I got there, it was midsummer a couple of years ago, and for some reason I had cleaned out my truck. I had taken my big bucket of tools out of my truck, and I didn't have any of all I had was my tool belt, my skill saw, and a reciprocating saw. But that was the day, of course, that we were going to be putting the sill plates on so that we could build this little roof. All I had was a little pair of vice grips like this, and my boss's. Oh, and I had my battery tools too. My my M18 Milwaukee stuff. So we marked out the sill plates where we were going to put them on the bolts that are on the foundation. The J bolts that go in. And I ended up using a pair similar to this. I actually just bought this pair because I lost my old pair. I don't know where they went. And they were cheapy Harbor Freight, like $3 ones. These are actual $5 ones from Vice Grips. So, or Irwin Vice Grip. So, I used a set of these, this same size, to put in, you know, you mark out the sill plate on the J-bolts, you drill the holes for the bolts, and then you bolt the sill plate down. This is all I had in terms of like a wrench, or usually I like to use big channel locks for it. But I used a pair of these, a tiny pair of these, to do it, and it worked fine. Another trick that people do with this, when you're using a skill saw, you've got the base of the skill saw like this, and you want to take like, I don't know, 2 inches, 3 inches off the bottom of a sheet. Like say you're doing siding, smart siding, and it's just 2-3 inches too wide. I just pinch the base of the skill saw like this and use my knuckles as a guide to go along. A lot of people will put a pair of vice grips on the base of the saw, pinch in the front, and have the vice grips in the back, and use that as a, you know, kind of like an edge guide. I was taught without using vice grips to do it, so I always just use, I always just pinch the base of the saw and ride along, and it's 9 times out of 10, it's more than accurate enough, it's straight enough. But these are, you know, they look like they're a mechanic's tool, and they are, but there's so many uses for them that you can find. If you have a pair of these in your tool belt, I promise you will find uses for them. Just unexpected things. Gary Striegler is a trim... Oh, the dog just knocked something over. Gary Striegler is a trim carpenter, and he keeps a pair of these in his belt, and he says he uses them to open stuck glue bottles. I haven't had to do that yet, but I'm sure I will eventually. So 5-inch vice grips. Get a set, keep them in your carpentry tool belt. You will not regret it at all. I hope wherever you are, you're comfortable and that God is with you. I gotta go make sure the dog's not eating cat food.